Hello, and welcome to this week's episode of History Behind the Page, the live series where you get to know all things of people behind history. So, super excited for tonight. We have John from Hidden History Podcast on. He runs a great history channel here on Instagram. He also has a really great podcast. He finds so much interesting stuff about history that not normally you see. So, we're going to have him on here in just a second. This is a live Q&A, so you are more than welcome to ask questions. The one thing I do ask is that on the bottom right-hand corner of your screen, there is a question mark bubble. Please submit your questions there, as sometimes they get lost in the comments. So we want to make sure that we can get to whatever questions that you have, if you have any. So we will get John on here. It's so weird when other people try to join your lives who aren't a part of it at all. It's just all right. Trouble, so he might have to pop on his his personal page. So let's see. Hope everybody is having a good Friday. Oh, it
Hi.
worked.
Hey, how you doing? Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. Can you hear my fan? Is it messing with the audio?
I think I can hear it. Could you turn it off?
Yeah, 1 second.
Okay. It's just how you can just hear it in the background.
All right, that's better. All right.
How are you?
I'm good. How you doing?
Good. Look, you got to go on this page, so you're not in that much trouble.
Yeah, I guess. Yeah, apparently for those who don't know, my account had a block where I couldn't go live for 3 days, and it was supposed to end today, which I guess it did end today, but it still says I'm blocked, so I'm not really sure, but I'm just happy to be on here.
Yeah. Oh, good old Instagram. All of us history nerds love it. It
Oh
treats
yeah.
us so fairly.
Yeah, it's a wonderful tool to do what we do, but there's a lot of, obviously roadblocks and stuff that we have to, tiptoe around.
Yeah, exactly. Can't post certain things, images, have to X some things out or blur them out.
Yeah,
So yeah,
yeah.
it is what it is. Um, so just quickly for all of you guys joining now, this is also a live Q&A too, so you are more than welcome to ask questions. I do ask that on the bottom right-hand corner of your screen, there is a question mark bubble. Submit your questions there because they do get lost in the comments, and I'm really blind and sometimes can't read the comments. So anyways, let's get this show on the road.
Perfect. Sounds
Yeah,
good.
so why don't you tell us what got you into history?
Okay. I guess I've always loved history in general, but it wasn't around till I guess 2016 that I decided I started thinking of it more of as a profession.
Mm-hmm.
When I also had transferred into a 4-year college and I needed to pick a major, so history felt right. Like I said, it's always been something I've enjoyed, and so I decided to major in history in college and did that, and it's just ever since 2016, basically, it's just it's grown. My love for history has grown because I've been able to learn new things. I've been exposed to new things historically, some things that others aren't privy to, such as being able to go to Poland and to the concentration camps.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and yeah, so I just basically, it's just, I guess it's been a lifelong thing that I decided one day, I was like, you know what, maybe I can make a career of this in some way, shape, or form.
Yeah. What was the youngest point that you liked history? Like did you like it in school, like when you were a kid? Was there something that did you see a movie that just sparked your interest or and kind of
I,
snowballed it?
I think for me, I've always been a reader since I was very, very young. So once you get into books, you're going to get into some sort of history. So I've
Mm-hmm.
always been exposed to it, whether it's fictional history or it's real history. Um, I guess it's just very young. High school, I believe, if I'm thinking back at it, high school is really where I realized, like, of all the classes that I did, history was like my easiest, my best one, or any type of government class or anything like that. Um, And so I just always, I guess I've always naturally was drawn to history, and it wasn't until later on that I decided that it was my thing.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. History in high school for me was super cool. And then also I think it was a government world studies class too. And we played like war in it. It was Mr. Miles. I remember that. It was so funny when each country, because we did fake countries, when each country would go to war, we had a bag of plain M&Ms.
Oh,
And
okay.
and when you went to war, you had to smash the M&Ms up against the other person, and the first M&M to break, they lost. They lost the war. It was
That,
actually pretty cool and
that's
pretty
a
fun.
great way of teaching, though.
But yeah, you learn a lot. Yeah.
After all these years, you still remember that lesson so long ago, and it
Hmm.
stuck with you. So that's a good thing.
It did. Just like my history teacher, Mr. Beeman, in sophomore year of high school, he made history super fun. Every on the last day of the week, we'd have something called celebrations of learning, which were tests, weekly tests, and we'd come in and he'd have party hats on every student's desk, and we'd come in and celebrate good times. Come on, would be playing, and we had to wear the party hats until we were done with the test.
Wow. Wow. Wow.
It was so great. He was just such an awesome
That is
teacher.
awesome though, because like I said, you remember that, and you
Hmm.
know we know that a lot of kids, it's hard to keep a child's attention as is.
Yeah.
So when you try to teach a child about the American Revolution or even the American Civil War, you're not going to keep their attention very long, unfortunately, because that's just natural.
Yeah.
So these types of games or
Hmm.
situations where the kids can be engaged but also learn. I love that type of thing, and I had exposure to that a little bit in college in one particular class. We were covering the Vietnam War and the Cuban Missile Crisis. It
Hmm.
was basically all the big events leading up. So we got to the Cuban Missile Crisis, and the professor of the class, he brought in a board game, and it was a board game. I can't remember. I always forget the name of it, but it was basically a board game where you take over, like it's that one player is the United States, one player is Cuba, and one player is Russia, and you have to make all the right moves in this game, just like real life.
Yeah.
And the professor brought this in to help us learn and to make and entertaining. So it's
Hmm.
something you remember basically. And I noticed that the other kids in the class, because when I went back to college, I was older. I was in closer to 30 than the other students. So I
Hmm.
would kind of observe them just to see, just because I'm weird like that. And I did notice that a lot of kids, it kept their attention. And it seemed like they all enjoyed it. And that's really what any professor or teacher wants to see.
Yeah, and that's also the beautiful thing too nowadays with as much as I love and hate it, social media. It You can create, reels and pretty posts and stuff like that, and engages people and doing lives and everything. So
Yeah.
it's much more, I guess, fun to learn and more intriguing to learn too. So
Oh, yeah.
I think that's
Yeah. I think that's the thing now. That's the challenge now, is that how do we keep someone's interest? How do we intrigue
hmm
to learn? Because now the world is so different than when you and I, for example, were growing,
yeah.
and when we were in school and learning. Now it's these kids have, tablets and everything's electronic, in the tech world. So we have to, as educators in general, especially with what we do, with history, we
Hmm.
have to find little ways to make it interesting, or else they're gonna just, ignore it, basically.
Exactly. Yeah, we didn't have smartphones in high school.
No,
I
no,
had a I had a gold Nokia, what is it, 3650 that had Snake on it. Like yeah,
nah.
smartphones really actually didn't even exist like even after I graduated really. Well, I guess maybe kind of, but
Well, I think
yeah, it wasn't a
the
thing.
iPhone came out in like 2007. I was a senior, and I remember that coming
Oh,
out.
okay.
And then the sidekicks and stuff like that, the flip phones. But yeah, the point is, yeah, the world has
Yeah.
changed so drastically, even in the last just 20 years.
Hmm.
And in terms of teaching, education, and all that. So, like you said, it's great that, like with Instagram, we can make different reels and different posts and such that draws in a crowd. It makes people like, oh, this is interesting. Let me learn a little bit more.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah, and I think it's great. And I think that's also one of the reasons that we share too. We want to share with our fellow history nerds, but also we want to reach people who don't know about whatever we're talking about at that moment in time. You know, I had somebody the other day who had absolutely no idea about the dust off crews in Vietnam and had no idea they existed, and they're like, thank you. And then they sent me a message. They're like, I just went on a 4-hour YouTube rabbit hole in regards to that, so thank you. I was like, you're welcome.
Yeah,
I think it's great.
If one person can, the way I like to see it, at least with my Instagram, with the podcast, is if at least one person walks away learning something new, I'm happy, honestly.
Exactly.
And a lot of the times I won't know that, obviously, but there are people who do comment and express that they didn't know this or that, and thank you for sharing. And it's like, that's basically all that I want, you know, just to, like you said, like whatever we're sharing, we just want to, you know, teach someone else who doesn't know about, who has no idea about it, and maybe they learn something new.
Yeah. Okay, so you went to college, got your degree in history. What was the plan after getting your degree in history? What was your like idea with that?
At the time, because I wrapped up May 2019. So at that time, it had been education. I was going to go into education, the education field, probably, you know, teaching, middle school or high school or whatever, you know, just start off and go from there. Because I always wanted to be a professor. So I had that in my mind and all that. So I was like, okay, you know, I even took some education classes just to prepare myself. But then as, you know, the months went by, and like I said, I finished up May 2019. And then by that point, what word am I looking for? I live in New York, and I knew I couldn't deal with the educational system in New York, the way it's ran. I knew I wouldn't have the patience. I knew that it would just be a ultimate shit show, excuse my language, at the end of it for myself. And because I've seen so much of how education has changed that it's sickening to me. So I couldn't go along with that flow that you see so often in TikTok videos and on Instagram and everywhere, you know, of these teachers doing some ridiculous things or saying some ridiculous things. And so I decided I couldn't do the education field. And at that point, I thought maybe something online, maybe something, you know, social media related. But then the months passed by, we got 2020, you know the story there.
Yeah.
2020. 2021, I went through that. I dealt with that, and then I started getting focused again on history, everything history again, like a plan, like what can I do, what steps do I have to take, blah blah blah. In the summer 2022, and then by September, I came up with a plan to make a podcast about hidden historical figures in history that I would cover each a different person. I was trying to do something. I didn't want to just focus on World War II or World War I or you know, specific topic. I wanted to look into maybe people in history that we should know about now, basically. So I did that. I decided to do that, and September I started the podcast. September 2022, and here we are.
That is awesome. So how do you find like those? How do you find, because some of the photos you get from the archives and stuff like that, I'm like, how did John find these? But also, how do you find these people, events, or anything that are not well known, that are hidden history? How do you find these? How do you find it?
Well, half of it is luck. I'll stumble upon something, or in the past I've stumbled upon something, and I'll keep a mental note of it to maybe do a project on it in the future. Honestly, I can say from my Holocaust work, the season I just wrapped up of Hidden History was all about the Holocaust, victims and heroes of the Holocaust. With that work, I honestly just there's so many people that if you just know where to find the list of names, you can pick and find the right story that works, the right story that can be told. It just works out pretty much that way for me, for the most part. I'll hear about people like such as Alter. I heard about Alter from you.
Mm-hmm.
And I made a mental note. And later on, I did one of my last episodes in season 2 was on Alter after I had read his book and did further research. And
You're giving me goosebumps. Such a
so
nice man.
yeah, it's a mix between people I've come across just in my own research from reading. I do a lot of I'm a big reader. And then also what I do is on Wikipedia, for example, let's say you're looking up the Battle of Britain, and you know how the main picture on Wikipedia comes up, and you look at it, and then you can look at the source. It might be from the National Archives.
Mm-hmm.
I'll go to the National Archives from there, which will bring me to the original picture. But then I'll look through the folder that that picture is located in at the other, just to see what isn't on Wikipedia readily available, and to see what isn't readily available on the internet in general. I also do a image search, Google image search, just to see what's out there. But that's basically how I find these, whether it's hidden people or hidden events or whatever. It's just lots of research and luck, I think.
Mm-hmm. So I haven't listened to your Alter Vienna episode. I didn't know that you did one on him, actually. What did you think of his book?
I really enjoyed, not enjoyed, sorry, that's not the word.
When you say that, I understand what you're saying.
Which is going to lead me into my next point. Whenever I read any memoir that has to do with the Holocaust or anything, it's the first thing you want to say is I enjoyed reading this book.
Mm-hmm.
But it's like, you obviously didn't enjoy what this person went through, but reading his experiences, I enjoyed that. Not what, that he got through it, that I was getting mad though when he got married, his wife.
Why?
I couldn't. Because basically, for those who don't know, Alter survived the Holocaust, and after the war, he eventually met a woman and got married, but this woman couldn't be there for him emotionally, that the emotional support that he needed at that time from his experiences surviving the Holocaust. And she was, and from what he wrote, she wasn't very nice to him. And so I was very angry at the wife. I was like, damn it. Because he talks about also other girls he's been with.
Yeah.
So I'm like, oh, that would have been a nice girl. Oh, that's a nice girl. And then he ends up with his wife, and I'm just like, oh, man. And then his kids didn't really want to know his story, and I'm just like, I hate when I hear that. It's just worst thing for me to hear, because then not only is it sad for him as a father who just wants to share his life experiences with his children, but it's like, how could you not want to know? Like, but that's
he actually lived not that far away from me. He actually lived a handful of blocks away from me before he passed. Well, I lived there when he passed. He sadly was met with a tragic fate. He died getting hit by a car in a crosswalk.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
I remember that night. Sorry, not to be like creepier. I remember that night, and I heard all the sirens, and I'm like, "What is going on? What is that? Like, what is it?" And then the next day is when I found out. I was like, "That is." I'm giving myself goosebumps. I was like, "That is one of the most."
Yeah.
That is so sad, because he did so much for Holocaust survivors and everything in Oregon, which is where he lived, in Hillsboro, Oregon. And just all across in general,
Yeah. Yeah, and that was the main driving point for me, that he died so soon, and the way he died, that really angered me. I mean, when it comes to, because I've done from the work I've done, a lot of these survivors, thankfully, they live on into their 90s and beyond, which is amazing that, after you go through such a horrible experience, you can live so old and continue on. But his accident, it shouldn't have happened, but I took it as he did his mission, because before he's talking, doing all those talks in Oregon, he wasn't really speaking about his experiences. And after he started speaking and all the letters he received, and he shares a lot of them in his book, from students, from teachers, and it's like, even though he was taken too soon, he spread so much awareness and information and love to people, and that was his mission. That was his goal.
Yeah, that is, I completely agree with you on that one. So I'm very happy that you got to do an episode on him and read his book. I'm happy that I was able to share that with you because he was a really great person. Sorry, my dog is lapping water in the background. If you can hear that. So what has been, so you started a Hidden History podcast. What has been your favorite episode that you have done?
That question. It's the first time I've asked it either. It's hard to pick. So because my 2 seasons are so different, I can give you a favorite from season 1 and season 2.
Let's do that.
Because my first season, I cover U.S. historical figures. I decided that was going to be my starting point. I'm a U.S. citizen. I love my country, and I figured best place to start. So that first season I covered, and I'm probably going to have to go with number 1 because number 1, my first episode was a man named Hugh Redman. And I stumbled upon his story by mistake. I was looking at pictures of in the local cemetery of graves of certain people that have buried their military and such, and I was wondering who was buried there, and his name came up. I did the research. He basically was held captive by communist China in the early 50s. He had been sent there by the United States on a spying mission. It was one of the early days of the CIA. He was connected to that, and he got busted in China. They kept him. They incarcerated him. They tortured him, but he never gave up his mission. His mother fought for years and years to get him out, to get the government to help, the U.S. government, but unfortunately there was no helping. And then he eventually died in Chinese custody. They said the Chinese say he killed himself. But yeah, we know what that means basically. So later on, the government acknowledged who he was, the usual that happens with these types of cases. But the connection with this man, for me, that I decided, let me, do this, is that he was a native of my city where I'm from, Yonkers, New York. So I thought, this is perfect. He was a Yonkers guy like myself. He's buried here in Yonkers. I went to try to find his grave, but I couldn't find it. It was very hard. So I ended up just finding a picture of it online. But it's a cemetery. I went there, and I figured he was the best. So Hugh Redman would be my favorite for season 1. And season 2, which was the Holocaust, victims and heroes of the Holocaust. There's just so many because I'm just looking at the list here of the episodes, and all of them. I could say Alter Wiener. I could say Varian Fry. And please, these are all names that if the listeners and viewers don't know them, please look them up. They're here. These are heroes of the Holocaust. These are some of them American heroes. Some of them are British heroes. Then we have victims that survived. If I'm gonna pick, I'm gonna probably go with number 1. Her name was Perla Ovitz. She was born with dwarfism. Her whole family actually was born with dwarfism. They were entertainment, a family of entertainers, because that's what they did at the time. Dwarfs or little people entertained. So they traveled throughout Europe. They entertained. Eventually, they were sent to Auschwitz, and they only survived because they arrived at the camp as a large group of a family, and there were not only 7 dwarfs, but 2 siblings were regular size. So this intrigued Mengele, and he had such a large sample to now work on. This was a large family of dwarfs, but they had normal sized siblings as well. And so Mengele did his experiments on this family, and Perla survived. Her siblings survived, and she lived to I believe her 90s. And so I'll have to go with Perla. She was tough. It was tough, especially imagine not only surviving one of those camps as a full-size person, but imagine doing it with a disability. It was
Mm-hmm.
another world for these people. So I'll say Perla Ovitz for my second season.
Oh, oof. Mangala. Ugh.
Yeah,
Ugh.
that was a dark one to cover that episode. Anything dealing with Mangala, as you know, is
Mm-hmm.
usually very dark and gloomy to deal with because he was just a sadistic person. So you know.
And yeah, his ending and stuff. I don't even want to get into it. Let's take
Yeah.
some questions. I'll get all huffy puffy over Mangala. Question for you both. Okay, we'll have to. What's the most difficult skin crawling piece of history you've read or researched thus far?
Okay. I have two areas that can relate to this question. One would be slavery in general. What
Mm-hmm.
is to African Americans that were enslaved in this country. If you do the research and you look deep enough, you can read about the different punishment techniques and etc. And the second would be probably skin crawling. Would have to be the doctor we were just speaking about, Mengele.
Mm-hmm.
No, Dr. Mengele was a Nazi doctor during World War II. He performed different types of medical experiments on the Jewish prisoners, with a specialty on twins, making a perfect Aryan race, and people with disabilities, whether they were dwarfs or little people, or people with giantism or really, really unnaturally big
Mm-hmm.
people. But he did a lot more than that. That's just a quick summary of him.
Yeah. For me, it's not like one event per se, but it's stuff I really don't cover at all. Maybe I will in the future about it, but the way that in World War II, the way that Japanese and also Germans, the Nazis, sorry, not Germans, people will get all huffy puffy if I say that. Um,
The not the
the,
German Nazis.
the German Nazis, yeah.
There you go.
The the torture techniques.
Mm.
You can find those very easily online, including with pictures. They are something that just I know it's perils of war, all that stuff, but it's so different how dynamic. Not saying that America or the British were perfect or anything when it comes to war, but it that whole thing, it just I just can't. Yeah.
Yeah,
I can't.
I
That was
totally
how I don't. Yeah.
get it. I totally get it
Yeah.
because I'm thinking, yeah, it's it's war, so these things happen. But
Mm-hmm.
when you, for example, smash an infant baby against a wall for no reason, that's not something that should be happening in war. That shouldn't be happening in general. That's taking it to the next level. That's just evil. So there are
Yeah.
acts of pure evil, such as, like you said, that the Nazis, a lot of the acts that the Nazis did, that were just, those were beyond just simple acts of war. They were evil.
Yeah. And I've read stories, and I'll just do this one. Sorry if this is this is going to be inappropriate, but I was reading stories from veterans and other historians of the Japanese would with sometimes with captured soldiers would uh, slice off their manhood while they were still alive, or slice off things, just that type of stuff. It very, very morbid, torturous stuff. And again, you can Google. I'm not going to go into details about it because you can Google it, and also just like it gives me the heebie-jeebies, even though it's the realities of war, and I know this, but it's just, yeah, that is that is it, yeah. So okay, let's see. We have from Jay Rodriguez. Question for John. Any past presidents you'd like to sit down with?
Um, yeah, maybe a few, I'm sure. But if I have to pick one past president, um, lately I've been in not in the mood. Lately I've been in the, all right, I'm gonna say the mood, political
I
mood.
get. Yeah.
I'll sit down. I would like to sit down with just because of recent events and recent times. It'd be nice maybe to sit down with Ronald Reagan.
Mm-hmm.
That would be a very interesting conversation, especially now in this in this climate. Or it would also be nice to sit down with Eisenhower. That would be very interesting to sit down with Eisenhower and discuss, in particular, the Holocaust camps that he saw when he was
Mm-hmm.
over there. So yeah, either Ronald Reagan or Dwight D. Eisenhower.
Yeah. Those are two really, really good choices. All right, let's see. This is from _Donna57. Who is your favorite historical figure?
Historical figure.
It's a tough question
Yeah.
for history nerds.
I'm gonna say, I mean, it could, because when you say historical figure, it could be a political figure. It could be
A celebrity.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I will say that my favorite historical figure. It's a good question. It's just it's a hard one. It's a hard one. My favorite historical figure.
I get stumped on this question all the time because I have the Rolodex going in my head, and I'm like I don't know who to pick.
You know, for the moment, I'm gonna go with Abraham Lincoln. I just, something's telling me to say Abe, so I'm gonna say Abraham Lincoln.
Abraham Lincoln.
Yeah, it feels right.
It feels right. Honest Abe. It's good. All right, let's see. All right, this is from JD from the History Underground. What podcasts are you listening to or have been inspired by?
That's a great question. I am currently, when it comes to history podcasts, I've listened to the History Underground. I've listened to, watched the History Underground.
Mm-hmm.
I've watched Walk with History. I watched, I try to tune into the Sons of History with Dustin. Then there's so many of them out there. Because you know what it is too. When I'm not doing historical stuff, I try not to watch or do anything else historical. If that makes like, I break like from, you know, whether it's Instagram stuff, or I need to watch a comedy, for example. So I'll put on some comedy podcast or something. But historically, those I mentioned, and then also you check out Historical USA's podcast if you're interested in the American history. That's very interesting. And I know I'm missing some people off the top of my head, but I try to watch as much as I can when I can, and those are just a few to name.
Yeah. And I think it's great. You can do you have channels like JD from the History Underground and Chris with Vlogging Through History, and you have Lisa Historical USA, and Jen and Scott with Walk with History.
I got one.
Those
Project
Walk with
Past, Project
James with Project Past. Yeah. Even though they're not technically Jen and Scott have a podcast, even though some of them aren't technically podcasts. I still consider them those, but also What's the Scuttlebutt is a really good World War II podcast as well. Also, if you are a Band of Brothers and Pacific fan, We Happy Few 506 has a really great podcast too as well. So there's lots of good podcasts, and there's one more off the top of my head, and I can see the name, but I can't think of it. If I remember it, I'll randomly shout it out in the during the show. So okay, let's see. This is from Historic Explorations. What is your favorite era? What's your favorite time era?
Okay. I really like I really like the 1800s. I enjoyed the 1800s, particularly I think between 1860 and 1890. I don't know why. I just it was just an era of in a way, it was, I don't know, it's just, especially in New York City history, maybe it's because I relate a lot to New York City history because I'm so close to the city. I would say probably the 1800s, the late 1800s. There were a lot of innovations going on. By the end of the 1800s, with Thomas Edison, with making so many different videos, motion pictures, and it's just you had Reconstruction in the South, even though that didn't go according to plan or that great at all. But there's just a lot going on. Basically, is what my point is. Particularly in the later half of So I'll say the 1800s would be a good time era.
Yeah, it's so funny. I always say the 1940s, and people get like kind of like, Sarah, do you know what happened in the 1940s? I was like, yes, I'm very aware of it, but I think mine would be post-war, post 1940s through the 50s, kind of where the start of even though this was going, this era of Hollywood was going on during the war too as well, because you had Jimmy Stewart and like all these other people, but that would probably be like post-war up into the 50s. Yeah. That kind of like time period right there. And I think for me, the entertainment person in me, the actress in me or whatever, I just love the movies, old movies and films and stuff like that. So I think that's kind of separating it from military history.
Yeah.
Is like something that definitely would intrigue me. Let's see. We have that's not the button I wanted to push. That's the button I wanted to push. Every live somebody asks this question. And I'll ask it in just a second. This is from J Mick 41. Who is your most interesting adversary to research?
Most interesting adversary to research. With that question, would that be like adversary as in like the most negative thing? Is that what that person is asking?
I'm not sure. So J Mick, if you want to clear that up, please submit a question just so John can answer it to what you would like.
Yeah.
I just want to answer
it correctly. Yeah, that's all.
No, I completely understand. Let's see. So this is the question that everybody asks, I think like 99% of the time. This is from Irish MC 101. Is it Band of Brothers or is it the Pacific?
Probably I would have to say Band of Brothers, I think. Yeah, Band of Brothers. Yeah, Band of Brothers.
Band of Brothers.
That feels right. That answer feels right.
Yeah. No,
yeah.
I totally get it.
Band of Brothers. Both are great. I mean, but yeah, I would say Band of Brothers.
I plead the fifth. I can't answer either. Yeah. The thing is, what people need to understand about Band of Brothers in the Pacific, I think a lot of people love Band of Brothers so much because it's the OG. It was the first, Tom Hanks, Steven Spielberg production, and it really brought us. It's such a great miniseries or a movie, whatever you want to call them. It's a movie if you binge it the whole time. It's a miniseries if you spread it out. But once the Pacific came out, I think 10 or 11 years later, it's a different side of the war, but it's also very different stories. And so each of them have their own thing. So a lot of people went into watching the Pacific, comparing it to Band of Brothers, and they weren't getting the same dynamic that they got in Band of Brothers that they were in the Pacific. But then again, you are following different companies. It's not just one. It's not just one company. So you got to keep up a little bit. And then I'm nervous about Masters of the Air too, because I know it's going to happen too as well. People are going to compare Band of Brothers to Masters of the Air and the Pacific to Masters of the Air. But yeah, so it's very interesting. Each of them, you have to go into them, each watching them as their own story, So that's just kind of my 2 cents with that. So.
I mean, it's also important to remember with World War II that for example, the fighting in Europe and the fighting in the Pacific and the islands are two different, it's
completely different.
Two different worlds, basically. It's different enemies, different terrain, different situations. So you know, when you watch something like Band of Brothers and then you watch the Pacific and you're hoping and you're like looking for like the same thing, you're gonna have similarities, but ultimately, it's just gonna be way different just because of the two locations are literally on one's on this side of the world, one's on this side of the world.
Exactly. It's you're fighting two completely different enemies. You're like you said, two different sides of the world. Like in the Pacific, you can't go take a weekend pass to Paris. They're on a tiny island. They have nowhere to go. They're surrounded. They're, you know, they're there. And so, and also the not saying, you know, one battle compared to other in the Pacific, but the battle scenes in the Pacific, the rawness and the what they went through. Not saying that people in the ETO had it easier than in the PTO, but it is so completely different. And so that is like a huge thing. Like I mean, the guys in the Pacific got it was brutal. They got I can imagine. I would, yeah.
It's remember, like, a lot of people don't you know, they don't think about it, but the Japanese soldiers, they had a whole different way of doing things than the German soldiers or the Italian soldiers or whatever, you know, that you were dealing with in Europe. So the Japanese had a code, like their own code, and I mean, we saw it with the kamikaze pilots. These are guys that are willing to blow up their plane to accomplish their mission. So right there, that should tell you that this is a different type of person you're fighting. But again, not to take away from anything from the Europeans, but you also have to keep that in mind about the enemy. Who are you fighting as well? What is their mindset?
It is completely different. Let's see. This is from Black AV Geek. Did you see all Morgan Freeman's documentary on the 761st Tank Battalion Black Panthers? If so, what are your thoughts?
I have not actually. I just I was.
Did that just come out?
I just saw it a few days ago. It popped up on my feed, and I was like, oh crap, Morgan Freeman. And then I looked at it and saw what he was up to, and yeah, he's doing that project. I have not seen it yet, but I am interested in watching it. I just didn't know he was doing it. I do know that he's connected with a lot of those different projects with National Geographic and such.
Yeah.
I was unaware, but I would like to see it.
Yeah, I know. I know it just came out. Is it on the History Channel?
I'm not sure, honestly. I think it is. I think it is on the History Channel. I think he did a collab with the History Channel, actually.
Yeah, I think so.
On the Instagram post that I saw, but yeah. What are you doing, Morgan? Let's see. But yeah, I did see that online. And I would like to check that out just simply because it's Morgan Freeman's voice, and I love to hear him talk, to be honest with you.
Yeah, but I'm not interested about the 761st, but the Black Panthers. I don't know who they are. So now that is going to happen, and that is going to create a whole different rabbit hole for me.
Of course.
with the 70 other that I have going on at one point in time. What?
The History Channel.
Is it the History Channel?
It premiered on August 20th.
Oh yeah, so just like a week ago.
That sounds interesting. The 761st Tank Battalion. So, honestly, whenever I can read about, I enjoy when I come across unknown African American history, particularly in the military. I always I enjoy not only learning more about it, but sharing it with others who don't know as much, because there might be a view. A lot of people think this or that, but like I like to show that, like you could see, at the end of the day, even though there was hardships for African Americans, racism and all that, they knew that this was our country and they wanted to fight, and that's why they joined.
Exactly. Yeah.
Many of them, wanted to simply serve their country, even though they knew they'd be treated like crap here at home. But that's what really it's all about at the end of the day. It's like we're all united, or hopefully.
Yeah. Well, I mean, they weren't only just treated like crap at home. They were treated in crap in service. They went, African Americans in World War II went through like for serving their country. I mean, that was again a completely different time. You can't fathom that nowadays, but back then it was just a completely different time. And you know, God bless all of those men who served and went through that. And ooh, I'm giving my own self goosebumps. John, what is your Jay Rodriguez wants to know, what is your favorite movie?
Uh,
History
uh,
movie. Sorry, history movie.
Favorite history movie. I mean, there's so many good ones, as you know. You
How
know,
about name your top three?
okay. I'm going to first say Oppenheimer just because I just recently saw it, and then I
Yeah.
guest on a podcast where I had to talk about it, and I got that and the research, and overall Oppenheimer and his work is very important. So,
Mm-hmm.
especially for the history of the world, as you know, with the nuclear bomb and how that ended up. So, I'll say Oppenheimer, and then uh, what else? What else? What else? Um, I'm going to include Pearl Harbor minus the love stuff. Just I,
the war man's. When I heard that word, I
rather,
got so
I'd
excited.
rather minus the love stuff. I'll say Pearl Harbor just because we got to see on film, that
Mm-hmm.
terrible day and what happened, and in the aftermath. So minus the love stuff, Pearl Harbor, and then my third one. I don't know. I'm gonna. Oh, actually, it just popped in my head, so I'm gonna go with it. I think it was on. Was that movie Lincoln on Netflix
Oh,
a few years ago?
Lincoln. Oh, with Daniel Day-Lewis as Lincoln.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I enjoyed. I enjoyed that one as well. So I'll say Oppenheimer, Pearl Harbor minus the love scenes, and Lincoln. But there's many others that I'm missing. I know people are gonna point that
Yeah.
out. There's many other great movies, but I'll just name those three for now.
It's so funny whenever somebody asks me that question, I like answer and then I'll get off whatever whatever pot like live or whatever, and then I'm like, darn, I should have said this,
Yeah,
and they all come back to you.
once I get,
Yeah.
I'm gonna remember 7 different movies that I should have
Yeah,
mentioned.
exactly.
But
And there's, I mean, again, there's so many different movies. You have, I mean, Saving Private Ryan. I mean, that came out around the age that, we were entering, uh, middle school
mm-hmm.
would be around that time.
Yeah,
So, yeah, so much. There's Midway, the Battle of Britain. Gosh, I'm totally spacing. I had 2 pumpkin spice lattes today, so I think I like over caffeinated my brain. So
that,
I
that's
can't, I
it.
can't think correctly.
I get it. I get it.
It's
Oh,
basic biatch season. It's my time to shine. So
another movie just popped in my head. Also to add to the other movies that we just
mm-hmm.
All Quiet on the Western Front.
Oh, that was really good too. Oh, 1917 is really good. They Shall Not Grow Old is good. Now I'm getting Glory. Somebody said Fury. Yes, Fury. Fury's really good too. Now, if you want to do like a historical movie that's like semi-accurate, somebody actually said this to me the other day. I couldn't stop laughing. They said that Inglourious Basterds was a documentary, and I said, I'm like, it's loosely based, but you can't call a Quentin Tarantino movie a documentary.
Yeah, that's a. But I mean, people are putting labels on things that don't even make sense anymore these days. So we can call Inglorious Bastards a documentary. Technically, yeah, why not?
Why not? I know. I guess. I, I guess so.
People, I don't know. If that, I don't know.
I think
Inglorious Bastards,
also, I think also a really good classic. I don't know if you've seen that. Is A Bridge Too Far.
A Bridge
Every
to. I don't
A
think.
Bridge Too Far with Michael Caine. It's from the '60s. Oh my god, it's so good. It's about Market Garden and then taking the bridge at Remagen, and it is so good and it's so funny. It's such a classic war movie, just like a 12 O'Clock High and Tora Tora Tora. Such good movies. I know they're older movies, but if you guys haven't seen them, definitely look them up because they're not going to be blockbuster midways, but for their time, it was amazing, especially Tora Tora Tora, Bridge Too Far, um, The Longest Day. So many good ones. uh, if you guys, I don't know if you guys seen it floating around, but there's a scene from A Bridge Too Far where this German, this little German kid or soldier is surrendering to Sean Connery and one other person, and they're like, "We can't take you," and they're like, he's like, "What?" And he goes, "We don't have the proper authorities to take you," and he was so sad that he couldn't go with them. It's such a good scene.
Oh,
Anyways, let's see. Okay, J Mick put the question in again. He said, well, you kind of, J Mick, you kind of just reset it, but in a different way. Who is your most interesting historical military adversary to research?
military adversary. Historical military adversary. My favorite. I just can't see how someone whose adversary is going to be my favorite. I would. I can name someone who I don't really enjoy researching, but I have researched and it's been vital to my work, and that probably be the German dictator of Germany during World War II. But other than that, and it's a lot of work with that because of the past season with the Holocaust, and most people know basically what happened with him. But other than that, I really I don't come across many military adversaries in my research per se. It's usually just if I can, just as normal people who are as normal as possible, or people that were once known well but just have been forgotten or something like that.
So J Mick said in the comment, he said, I guess interesting, not favorite. So is there somebody that you've researched that you find interesting, but not just like you're a cool dude?
Something that's very interesting that I've researched, I would probably say, especially with the movie coming out soon, is Napoleon. Napoleon on a person that half the historians seem to love and half the historians seem to hate. So, but overall, he has a very interesting story, interesting life. And now they have that movie coming out in Thanksgiving with Joaquin Phoenix playing Napoleon. So that should be interesting. So I'll probably say Napoleon. To name one right now, I'm going to go with Napoleon as the most interesting.
I don't know if I could answer that. Well, see, when it comes to stuff like that, I get intrigued with like gangsters and serial killers. So mine wouldn't be military history related. I'm one of those morbid type of people. But yeah, that was actually a good one. Napoleon, I know the basics of what I learned in school, but I don't know like that much, like stuff about him.
The same. I'm the same. I know the basics. I know his connection with France. He was there, and yet the people. There's a lot. I'm not. I don't know much at all. Just the basics, like you said, and then I saw the trailer for the movie, and I thought it looked really good. So I'm kind of hooked on that. So yeah.
Okay, let's see. Danny D. Italiana says, what's your favorite historical show, TV series? I highly recommend John Adams.
I've heard of John Adams. That's on my very, very, very long list of TV shows and movies to watch.
Mine too.
I have a very long, there's a lot of things that either I haven't seen or I need to see or whatever it may be. I have a list. So, one show that's been on my mind recently, well, two shows actually that have been on my mind recently. One is called Timeless. It was
I was just gonna say that.
For those who don't know, it was a show that ran on, I don't know, NBC or whatever. I used to watch it on
NBC. It was on NBC.
They had a team, a professor, a military dude, and the guy who drives the time machine, and they had to go after another guy who stole the time machine. And I know it sounds like kind of stupid right now as I'm explaining it, but it's very interesting because you get they go back into different historical time periods. You meet George Washington. You get to meet a young John F. Kennedy. It's very interesting. So it was a very interesting show. It was so interesting, in fact, that when they canceled it, the fans had an uproar, and they had to bring it back for like an hour special or whatever it was. I can't remember exactly.
They brought it back for a second season, and then they were not going to renew it again. So they did a 2-hour, I think it was a 2-hour final episode, which wrapped everything up. It is such a good show. I'm so happy you said that. I've never met anybody else who has seen Timeless.
Yeah, Timeless. I actually, I'm probably gonna start watching it again, is because it's just been on my mind. And also, Hell on Wheels is a good show. It has to do with the Transcontinental Railroad when they were building that right after the Civil War, and it has to do with a former Confederate soldier who's on a mission of revenge. His family was killed, and he's trying to find the guys who killed his family, and it just you had the building of the railroad. You have this railroad town, because at the time you had to live in a small little town on the work site. And when you finished building the railroad, you would pick up the town and move on along with the track. So this former Confederate shows up at the little railroad town looking for revenge, and it just spins off into this amazing story that I definitely recommend people to check it out. Hell on Wheels.
I watched the first 2 episodes years ago, because it's on FX, right? It's an FX show.
Yeah.
I watched the first 2 episodes and I got intrigued, and then because I can't stay focused on one thing, I got distracted and stopped watching it. But Deadwood's a really good one. Have you seen Deadwood?
I have Deadwood. It's on the list.
Yeah, oh my God, and there's so many good shows coming out right now too. But also, if nobody's seen it, it's more of a funny. It's a remake of an Alan Arkin movie, which, by the way, rest in peace, Alan Arkin. Alan Arkin. I just found out he passed away at the end of June.
Oh,
the actor. I had no idea. But anyways, Catch-22 is really good. George Clooney, but it's about bombers in the military. That's on Netflix. It's a kind of comedy. That's a good one too. But they're coming out with, oh my gosh. And I literally was just about to say his name. Who was the first African American sheriff?
Sheriff.
They're coming out with a brand new show. His name is just on the tip of my tongue. I was just about to say it. But he was the first African American. You know what? Again, I've had too much pumpkin spice lattes. But if somebody in the comments knows the first African American sheriff, you have your computer.
Bass Reeves?
Yes, Bass Reeves. Bass Reeves. They're coming out with a TV show with him too that's coming up too, and it's really cool.
Oh.
So
interesting. The first Black deputy U.S. Marshal west.
The U.S. Marshal. They did an episode on Timeless with him.
Did they?
Yeah.
Wow. That's why I need to go back and watch.
That's actually how the first time I ever heard of Bass Reeves was from Timeless.
Wow. Yeah.
Yeah.
In Timeless, the big people stuck out to me, and the big events. But I'm gonna rewatch it because, look, that's perfect example of someone who was covered in Timeless. This man, the first Black deputy, U.S. Marshal.
U.S. Marshal. Yeah. I know.
That's very interesting.
Yeah, but what I love is that. Oh, that's my dog. I was like, what is that? I love how they're coming out with all of these new like historical based TV shows, like the Yellowstone spinoff with Helen Mirren and Harrison Ford, and then they're doing another spinoff of that show too as well. So they're just going all out.
Yeah, I didn't even start Yellowstone yet, so I'm gonna have a lot to catch up on.
I can't believe I've been wanting to watch Yellowstone for so long, and everyone's like, you need to watch it, Sarah. You'll love it, and I know I'm gonna love it because also I love Kevin Costner. Love Kevin Costner. So I can't believe I haven't seen it yet. So
yeah, it's on the list.
Yeah. I feel like we all have the longest lists of.
I have a movie list, I have a book list, and I have a TV list.
Mm-hmm. Oh, what are you currently reading right now?
I knew you were going to ask. Okay, I'm currently reading. I'm in the middle of 3 books currently. Mm-hmm. This one is Behind Nazi Lines. Mm-hmm. And it's about my father's heroic quest to save 149 World War II POWs. This guy wrote a book about his father, and his father's name was Andrew Hodges,
Mm-hmm.
and he was a Red Cross volunteer who was tasked with arranging a POW transfer during World War II. And I'm not done yet, but I'm getting there.
Mm-hmm.
I'm almost there, so
Yeah.
it should be. So that's one book that I'm currently reading. This book here I keep on the side. It's one of my like side books that I just read whenever the hell like I'm in the mood to read it.
Mm-hmm.
48 Hour.
Oh.
This is a very interesting book.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it just gives you different laws.
Mm-hmm.
Law 15 is crush your enemy totally, and it gives you the judgment, examples from history, how that law was used in history by real historical figures,
Mm-hmm.
and blah blah blah. It's very interesting. And then the last book I'm reading is President Reagan: The Role of a Lifetime.
Oh. Nice.
Cracked that. That one I just cracked recently. I'm trying to get through it. It's a thick one.
Yeah.
But not a problem. So that's what I'm currently reading.
Yeah. It's funny how we can never just read one book.
When I read one book, I feel like I'm not doing enough.
Yeah.
Honestly, I don't know. Weird. I can't explain it. Like, I'll have one book, and I'm like, I'll look around. I'm like, I don't have any other book to read right now. Like, it's just, I need to. Also, one book's about World War II, one's about Reagan, and then one's just about law power. So it just keeps me everywhere. You know, like different areas. So that's kind of my thing.
Yeah. I'm currently reading. It's over there. I don't feel like walking over to go get it, but it's called Dead Men Flying. It's by Major General Patrick Brady. He's a Medal of Honor recipient in the Vietnam War. It is his book on the dust-off cruise in Vietnam. He actually sent it to me personally. So my little signed copy, but coffee. Apparently, what's on my brain? I need to stop. Copy.
Sarah, only August. You got to slow down with the pumpkin spice.
I know, but it's basic bitch season. It's my time to shine.
Wait till next week. At least wait till next.
I know. I'll tone it down. But yeah, Dead Men Flying by Major General Patrick Brady, and I think his daughter Meg Brady. But it's all about the dust-off cruise and his time with the medical detachment and everything. And if you guys don't know that much about the dust-off cruise and what they went through, it is absolutely insane what these guys went through. The dust-off cruise, sorry if you guys don't know, that is what they called them back during the Vietnam War. Today we know they still call them dust-offs internally, but it's medevacs or case vacs. So medical evacuation or casualty evacuation. So that's they paved the way for the medical evacuations that we have today. But yeah. Anyways, I can talk a lot.
No,
we have more.
Interesting book.
It is, yeah. Oh my gosh, it's already 5:00. That is why she's being all crazy. Oh, John, this has been so fun. You were so fun to talk to. I'm so happy you came on and said yes.
I'm glad we finally worked it out. And
yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I'm glad for having me on.
Yeah. So, John, why don't you tell everybody where they can find you, like what platforms they can find you on or anything?
Okay, thank you. First, thank you for everyone who's watching. Thank you, Sarah, for having me. And you can find me here on Instagram at Hidden History Pod. I'm over on YouTube. I'm trying to get that going. So I'm posting more content over there now on YouTube. You can find me there at Hidden History Pod. And then I have a website as well, hiddenhistorypod.com. But I'm mainly on Instagram, posting pictures, reels, whatever. And you can find me there.
Where can they listen to your podcast at?
You can listen to my podcast anywhere you listen to podcasts, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Amazon, all of them. It's available on all podcasts, seasons 1 and 2. You can also find my seasons 1 and 2 on my website. I have it all listed there as well.
Wonderful. Wonderful. Well, John, thank you so much for coming on, and everybody else, thank you so much for tuning in and asking questions. I always appreciate your guys' support and you guys tuning in. This will be available in a couple minutes on Instagram, and I will have it uploaded on YouTube tomorrow on my History Check channel. But I hope everybody has a great Friday. It's been super fun. And John, again, thank you so much for being on, and I hope you have a great Friday. And I know we'll chat later. So
All right. Yeah. Good night.
all right, you too.
All righty.